Morning. That was a good morning from y'all. Wow. I'm excited because the radio program finally worked today. And bless Butch's heart. He was so remorseful. We've had a problem the last 3 weeks, and it finally got fixed for today. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I don't even listen to it because who likes to go back and hear their voice recorded, and I just don't do it. I just can't do it. I did it this morning because I wanted to make sure it ran, and it did, thankfully. But it's never fun going back to hear yourself. I can tell you that right now. No. Why didn't y'all tell me I sound like that? I know what you're saying. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Very, very sweet. All of you are. Checks in the mail. All right. Chapter 2 in the book of Romans. Book of Romans, chapter 2. We got into this verse last week, began to look at it. It brings up the conscience. Of course, the verse before that, talking about the Gentiles. Let me ask you this. Before the 10 Commandments, was it a sin to murder somebody? Yes, it was. Was it a sin to steal from somebody? Was it a sin to be disrespectful to mom and dad before the 10 Commandments? Yes. Some of y'all are puzzled on that one. Maybe, I don't know. Yes, absolutely. My point is that sin has always been here, well, since the fall of man. Okay, and really, what sin is transgression of the law. Of whose law? God's law. And so, yes, we know that the Gentiles were guilty of sin. Chapter 1 discusses that in detail. And if they were guilty of sin, then there must have had been what for them? A law. Okay. So for when the Gentiles, which have not the law, what kind of law is he speaking about, though? The law of Moses. That's right. Do by nature the things contained in the law, these having not the law are law unto themselves. The law of common sense, the law of Moses was not for the Gentiles, it was for the Jews. So they were under some kind of law. And then he says in verse 15, which show the work of the law written in their what? Well, really, what does he mean? Mind. In the Bible, when it speaks about hearts, it speaks about the mind. The heart is a muscle. Okay, it's a muscle. And it reacts to the brain, just like all of our muscles do. All of our muscles react to what we're wanting our muscles to do. Or at least that's how it should work. And so, like, if we feel guilty, or if we feel anxious, stressed, does our hearts react to that? Absolutely. Especially when we're anxious, we have anxiety attacks, we feel like we're about to pass out, or our heart starts racing and things like that. It's just a muscle. It reacts to our minds. And then he says this, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the meanwhile accusing or else excusing one another. And that's what the conscience is. It's that little thing that we have. It's that component that we have that will tell us whether or not we are doing that which is right or wrong according to what? That's right, how it's been trained, how we believe. Our consciences could be different. If that's why there's a problem in the world today when they talk about the truth is subjective. What is true for me may not be true for you, and what's true for you may not be true for that person there. In other words, essentially what they're saying is, well, I felt like it was the right thing to do to shoot that guy and kill him. But God calls that what? Murder, okay? Even though he feels good about it. But that's what they're saying, and that's the problem with the idea that the truth is subjective. Is it subjective? Truth? Is it subjective? Or is it objective? Are there many truths or one truth? One. So it's objective, right? Yeah. Did I get that right or did I get that wrong? See, now y'all confused me. That's all right. Subjective is where people have different feelings about it. Objective means this is it, black and white. Okay? What is truth? God's word. John 17:17, Jesus expressed that in his prayer in Gethsemane. Thy word is truth. So the conscience bears the witness. It either accuses or excuses what we do. All right? This is our character, or we can develop a character from this. It tells us to act in harmony of what we believe. And this, by the way, and I remember discussing this last week about how this makes us different than animals. Okay? Animals do not have a conscience. Remember we talked about taking the last hot dog or chicken finger off the plate when there's a potluck. We feel guilty, or we want to look around and make sure that nobody else wants it before we take it. Which, on the other hand, a dog wouldn't do that. He'll say, well, thank you very much. I'll take that. He's not going to ask other dogs, hey, you go ahead and take that. No, they'll get up and fight for that chicken finger. We are different because of this right here alone. Or this is one of many reasons why we're different, I should say. So we're instructed, we're supposed to be instructed in righteousness. And of course, you all know, or I assume that you all know. I was taught to never assume in preaching school, by the way. Never assume what your audience knows. But I assume you know because of how much we discuss what righteousness is. What is that? God's commandments. And where do you find that in the scriptures, by the way? Yes, Psalm 119, 172. All your commandments are righteous. So when our conscience is instructed in righteousness, we know what is right and wrong in a giving situation. That is what God gives us in his instruction. All right. So it condemns or it rewards the way we act. Now, when the conscience is ignored or abused over a period of time, that conscience stifles a little bit, or I should say to almost nothing. We won't have a conscience anymore. We'll have a hardened heart. Our hearts will be calloused. Nothing is going to change our minds. We're going to think one way or another, and we don't care what anybody thinks about that. Do we know anybody like that? Could be. Could be people in our lives that are like that, where it just does it whatever. Let's look at let's get 1 Timothy chapter 4. 1 Timothy chapter 4. And someone please read the first 3 verses.
Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron.
One more, please.
Forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth.
Well, that sounds like he's speaking about one particular group that I know very well, which, by the way, called for civil unity with those who are in homosexual marriages. And this is quite recent, actually, and this has caused quite a stir within the Catholic Church. This is one of the most liberal popes I've ever heard of in my life. He made several claims. One particular, all atheists are going to heaven, for one, which should have been a red flag. Hello, but you could read this and notice some things here. The Spirit speaks expressly that in latter times some will depart from the faith. By the way, what is that, the faith? And how many of them are there? One. It's the gospel. It's the Christian faith, one faith. It's not one faith split up in several directions where we're all taking different roads to heaven. The Bible doesn't teach that. It teaches of a narrow road or a narrow path that few will find, but he doesn't teach about many paths that go there. But he calls that giving heed to seducing spirits. Those who will teach falsely will find those who have itching ears and want to find a teacher that will teach them things that they want to hear or teach things. By the way, if you want to go to heaven, you'll be okay if you continue to live in this way. And of course, that's very appealing to a lot of people. They want to love God and yet still want to love the world, which we know the scriptures are refute that as well.